Well, today we're going to be talking about Chapter 8.2, which is multiplying and factoring. And our objectives for today is to multiply monomials by polynomials and to factor monomials by polynomials. Okay, we're in A1.4.2 and A1.4.3 for our standards today. So first what we're going to do is we're going to learn how to take a monomial times a trinomial. So we're going to multiply these terms together. This is fairly simple. All we're going to do is distribute. Okay, we're going to distribute these terms through. So if I have a negative x cubed out front, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to multiply it to each term. Now remember, terms are separated by addition and subtraction. We learned that last section. That separates the terms, the plus and minus there. So we're going to take this through to each term. So I'm going to take the negative x cubed, I'm going to multiply it here. Negative 1 times 9 gives me a negative 9. X cubed times x to the fourth is going to give you a base of x, but we're going to add the exponent. So 3 plus 4 is 7. So we get negative 9x to the seventh. We're going to do the exact same thing to the next term. So separation and subtraction sign right there. Now, when I take a negative 1 times a negative 2, that minus really is a negative there, I get now a positive 2, and x to the third, and x to the third gives me 3 plus 3 is 6. So I get now a positive 2x to the 6th power. And then the last term, I'm going to do the same thing. Negative times a 7 gives me a negative 7. And then x cubed, there's no other x's, so therefore it's just x cubed. So right there would be our trinomial after we distribute through with that negative x cubed. Okay. So got it, number 1. Go ahead and do that. And again, I'll put the answers in the back. Alright, so problem number 2 is basically taking problem 1's end result. So right here, this is where we finished in problem 1. And we're going to start talking about how to factor and take it backwards. So the first thing we need to do is know how to find what we call the greatest common factor. Now you've done this probably in like 7th grade somewhere, but a recap on it. What we're going to do is we're going to look at each term. Again, we're going to separate those terms by the addition or subtraction. Now the easiest way to do this would probably be to label these out. So if I go 5x cubed, I'm going to label that as 5 times x times x. And excuse me, that's times x because it was cubed. So 3 x's, 1 5. 25 is going to be 5 times 5, but then we have times x, so that one's only squared. Okay, and then you have 45x, which is going to be in prime numbers 3 times 3, which is the 9. Okay, 9 times 5 makes 45, and then you have times the x. So once you're there, all you're going to do is you're going to find the greatest common factors that they have. Okay, so as I see real quick, I see they all have an x in common. Okay, well then I go, well this one and this one have an x. The problem is down here we only had one x. So therefore they don't have another x in common. So the largest they have in common in the x's is just one of them. Now I look at the 5s and I do the same thing. I see how they have 5s in common. I see this one has another 5, but this one doesn't and this one doesn't. This one has 2 3s, but none of these up here have 3s. So it's only what is the largest amount they have in common. So when I write this out, what they have in common now is they have a 5 and they have an x. So what that means is that the greatest common factor of each of those terms is 5x. And eventually what we're going to figure out is there's going to be 3 terms inside, and that's the monomial that we had in problem number 1 that we would have distributed through to each term. Okay, so that's what we really found out. So that would be how we would reverse the process, and we'll get farther along into that. But for right now, your answer is just the 5x. Okay, so tell me what the greatest common factor is of this problem. Got it, number 2.